Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you, our participants, our guest speaker, and our esteemed panelists to the Siddhartha Agriconnect Summit. I'm Siddhartha Samar. I work at Cellular to drive sustainable and strategic with food and beverage processors and other corporate commodity buyers as the head of enterprise engagement with the Agric Marketplace Division. And I will be your moderator in this webinar. Today, we'll be conversing on smart farming, a solution to prevailing hunger in Africa. It is known that Africa over 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land, an abundance of fresh water, and approximately 300 days of climate. This landmass can produce over 100,000 metric tons of food and 600 meals daily. This means Africa can conveniently feed itself and even other parts of the world if developed to its maximum potential. Our CEO, Bolaji Akimboro, once said, if potentials were edible, Africa would have the best fed people in the world. This statement is not far-fetched when you consider the paradox of hunger, where countries that are highly populated by farmers and have arable land are the same countries that are affected the most by hunger and undernutrition. About 58% of Congolese and 77% of Ethiopians are involved in agriculture, yet up to 70% and 41% of their population are undernourished, respectively. According to a report by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, UNFAO, global food demand is set to rise by about 70% by 2050. Now, this puts Africa at the forefront of the conversation in terms of food production and supply, if properly developed. Sadly, the African agricultural sector is characterized majorly by inefficient farming practices and poor logistics, that is, in terms of how the inputs get to the farmers and how their produce gets to the market. And this leads to low quality and volume of yield, as well as wastage, thereby limiting our domestic supply and export potentials. Today, Cellulant's integrated digital platform, Agricore, which connects all value chain actors from farmers to food and beverage processors to retailers, is addressing the issue of logistics by fostering market linkages. However, there is still an outstanding problem of the prevalence of inefficient farming across Africa. It is clear that if we will ever stand a chance at beating the paradox, lifting about 257 million Africans out of poverty, we need to start having active discussions on the progressive adoption of a different type of farming. Hence, today, we brought together subject matter experts from agriculture, food, and technology industries to discuss how smart farming can be a solution to prevailing hunger in Africa. I'm delighted also today to be joined by the Honorable Acting Commissioner for Agriculture, Lagos State, who will be opening this summit with a speech. Honorable Ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you here. Before I call on the Honorable Acting Commissioner, here is a brief citation. Ms. Olusonia Abisola currently acts in double capacity as the Acting Commissioner and the Special Advisor to the Governor of Lagos State on Agriculture. Before her foray into public service, she had her career trajectory in one of the world's largest agro supply chain management companies, Olam International, where she spent 8 years in the rice and sugar division of the company, working in Ghana. Prior to this, she worked briefly in the building and construction industry, given high qualifications, having studied architecture as a first degree from the University of Lagos. Due to her quest for knowledge in running and managing businesses, she acquired an MBA degree in Bureau Management from the Lagos Business School, Pan-Atlantic University. She has been charged to deliver legacy projects that are aimed at transforming in Lagos under the administration of His Excellency, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, with the foremost being the Immortal Rice Mill Project, which is potentially the largest mill in sub-Saharan Africa upon completion, and is working assiduously to ensure timelines are met. You're welcome, Ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you here.
On Zoom. Are you the only one?
Hello, Ma'am. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can.
Yes, I can hear you. So I said thank you very much, Unini, for having me. Cellulant, I've been a big fan, following Cellulant for quite some time now. So when I was reached out to be a part of this discussion, I was truly happy and honored to be in it. And looking at the topic of discussion, smart farming, a solution to prevailing hunger in Africa, I felt that the timing was definitely right, considering all that we have passed through, especially around the COVID-19 pandemic. And to put things in proper perspective, especially with Lagos being the center of excellence, Lagos being the city or the state with the most vibrant population, it's imperative that smart agriculture be at the forefront of everything that we do as a state. And I want to assure Lagosians, I want to assure Nigerians that under the administration of Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu, a lot is actually being done towards this end. To put things also in proper perspective again, it would be imperative to note Lagos obviously is the largest economy in Nigeria, contributing to about 25% of GDP. Lagos is also estimated to be the fifth largest economy in Africa. And obviously, as one of the fastest growing cities in the world, we are faced with multiple challenges, especially around improving food for our residents. And also, Lagos State is desirous, obviously, of coming up with a viable long-term strategy for food sufficiency for the state. It would interest you to note, obviously, Lagos is number one in GDP contribution in Nigeria. Lagos State is the second most populous state in Nigeria after Kano. But then, in terms of geographical size, Lagos is the last, the 37th state, having only 3,577 square kilometers of land. In terms of IGR, Lagos is definitely number one. In terms of budget, Lagos State is definitely number one. Then, when you now talk about agricultural labor force or anything agri-related, Lagos is number 37 again. So the disparity between agriculture and the population, it makes it threatening for Lagosians to sit still or to sit back and not do anything, especially as regards smart farming. What we are trying to do as a state is to come up with a holistic strategy around how we can solve for the food issues in Lagos. And like I said earlier, COVID-19 pandemic actually brought to the fore the vulnerabilities we have as a state around agriculture. Our strategy actually is resting largely on key pillars which we felt we needed to tackle before we could have a sustainable food security agenda. And these platforms or these pillars, we will start with capacity building and empowerment. Obviously, looking at us as a state, we are very cosmopolitan, very metropolitan, very urban. So you don't have as much farming communities as we would want to have. Aside that, our population consists mostly of youth who would rather be in the entertainment industry as opposed to being in the agricultural sector. So one of our key agendas is how to attract the teeming population, the teeming youth into agriculture. How can we make it look more attractive to them? And smart farming is actually one of those ways. The use of technology is one of those ways. Then we talk about infrastructure. In terms of our farming communities, at least those that exist, have we put the necessary infrastructure in place for more farmers to come into this space? Are we creating the enabling environment for would-be farmers to see it as an attractive space to invest in? Then we'll talk about financing, which is actually a key element in the agricultural space and one of the most difficult to access, because a lot of banks regard agriculture as a dark space where you can't really tell or you can't really do the permutations around analyzing the potential returns on the investment. So financing is also a key pillar. Then we talk about PPP, public-private partnerships. As a government, our job is to create the enabling environment for private sector to come into the space, do what they have to do, make good money, and then the state also benefits in terms of the job and wealth created by this private sector participants. So how can we make ease of doing business better? That is also a key pillar. Then we talk about market accessibility. With everything around capacity building, infrastructure, financing, PPP, if we do not create market accessibility, both for our farmers, consumers, those in the value chain, then we still haven't solved any issues at all. So market accessibility is actually one of the key issues also that we are trying to solve. We have markets in Lagos. Lagos is actually the largest market in sub-Saharan Africa again, but our markets are not organized. Therefore, our markets are very informal. Access to data is very difficult. Therefore, anyone wanting to do analysis around looking at the size of Lagos market, the potentials in it, and how they can invest in it, it's actually very difficult. So we're also trying to ensure that in terms of market access, both in terms of the infrastructure and at the same time on the data side, we are trying to get around it to ensure that we
Hello, ma'am. I think we lost her.
to attract investors into the space. These are the lie on, and then we are all in the state. And the focus, a template in the sense that investors in the space can be categorized as micro, small, medium, and large scale players. So the templates would definitely tell you if you want to come into this space and this is the funding you have available, you qualify under this bracket. That way it makes it easier as a state to also partner with the private sector, and then there's transparency around the transactions. Also, we are trying to develop clusters as opposed to just having agriculture farmlands all over the state, and then you have pockets of smallholder farmers in different areas trying to improve on food production. The best thing is to create cluster systems where we know, for instance, it can be the right effect, can be that way any infrastructure required can be channeled into that cluster area, and then we can drive more value for money. So we are trying to ensure that technology, as it were, is imbibed fully into all that we are doing. And in conjunction with the Ministry of Science and Technology, we are trying to develop an ag-tech innovation center where everything around agriculture and the technologies that can help us improve on yields, improve in production, improve on food production in totality can be arrived at. Lagos is a peculiar state. We are the smallest, therefore we don't have enough land. Whatever we are doing with regards to agriculture, precision farming, smart agriculture is the way to go. And technology is actually one of those levers by which we can achieve what we want to achieve. So these and a couple of, in fact, not just a couple, a host of other things are actually in the pipeline for Lagos State around agriculture. Then when it comes to financing, I want to believe that our relationship with the Apex Bank, CBN, and then with the likes of World Bank is at the best that we have seen in a very long time. So in terms of access to funds, financing, and all of that, we are on top of it to ensure that our farmers are able to benefit, anchors are able to benefit, and then the state as it is also able to latch on to this funding being made available for us to be able to develop ourselves. Lagos is not so much the agrarian community, but Lagos is now going to be more of the value addition processing center for Nigeria. That is the plan, which is why the Immortal Rice Mill is actually the foremost project we have in agriculture in the state. 32 metric tons being the largest in sub-Saharan Africa, the fourth largest in the world. Obviously, paddy aggregation is going to be a challenge, but we are hoping that Nigerians will rally around us. Those in the rice producing communities, they would rally around us as well to ensure that this mill works and Nigerians are food secure. These and many more, such as our Lagos Aquaculture Center for Excellence, which would focus on fisheries, since that is an area where we have competitive and comparative advantage, considering the fact that we are surrounded by water bodies. This is actually a key focus as well. And like what I had said around market accessibility, both physical infrastructure as well as what you have around data. For physical infrastructure, we have markets, obviously. We have the likes of Mile 12, we have the likes of Oyinbo Market. But we want that market that Lagosians can say, yes, this is a market that befits a 21st century Lagos. And we are working towards getting that off the ground as well. We have our food production parks, Songhai, Badagry, which also we want to get into commercial production of the poultry and aquaculture and vegetable farming. And we have so many other projects that are in the pipeline. Also, I believe we're having talks even with Cellulant on this Connect to Work, where our youth in the agri space, trained by the Lagos State Ministry of Agriculture under the Agric Youth Empowerment Scheme, they can be connected to work in the agricultural sector through this program, Connect to Work. So these and many more are some of the initiatives under the Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu administration of Lagos State. So I would want to say a big thank you once again for the opportunity to at least share a bit of what we are doing as a state and what we plan to do as a state around agriculture, and how one of our key focus areas also is in smart farming, because that is just the way to go, especially for a state like Lagos, where we don't have the land space available for large-scale agriculture. So thank you very much, and I hope to get a lot of insights from our panelists and from the viewers who will be asking questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that wonderful speech. It has indeed guided and direction for our discussion today. So thank you.
Thank
you. All right. Yeah. Okay, so I would proceed to introduce the panel. I'm joined today by 3 subject matter experts whose experience cut across agriculture, banking, and food processing. I will now proceed to introduce them to you. I will start with Ms. Victoria Madedo. Ms. Victoria Madedo is an agribusiness expert at BOI Investment and Trust Company. She's also a fellow Institute of Management Consultants, FIMC, a senior member of the Chartered Institute of Public Diplomacy and Management, and fellow Institute of Agribusiness Management, Nigeria. Her passion for youth and women's development has prompted her to volunteer as a mentor for Google Accelerator Launchpad 2017, Lagos State Government Ready Set Work Program 2017, and International Business Accelerator 2018, which has improved the lives of hundreds of youths and women. She has worked as lead consultant for poultry research with JMSF on behalf of the World Bank. She's an advocate for agribusiness growth in Nigeria. and a subject matter speaker and resource person with Post-Harvest Loss Alliance for Nutrition Plan, Edo Women for Agriculture and Enterprises, Lagos State Ministry of Agriculture, and Lagos State Ministry of Education. She is an article contributor for Business Day Nigeria, National Economy, Business Africa Online, AgriCwatch Media, and in recent times, Invest Africa Magazine UK. Ms. Victoria Madedo, you're welcome. We also have Mr. Opeoluwa Ogundipe. Mr. Opeoluwa Ogundipe is an expert in financing businesses and projects across the agricultural value chain. He has over 26 years of education and experience in financial services, managing businesses, and most recently, public service as a senior manager in the agricultural value chain, finance and investment services business unit of NISAL, that is the Nigerian Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System for Agricultural Lending. Mr. Opeoluwa currently leads the retail finance and insurance team of NISAL. This team pioneered index-based insurance in Nigeria with the development and launch of the Area Yield Index Insurance, AYI, in 2017. And most recently, the Revenue Index Insurance, which is a first of its kind in Africa and is currently undergoing reinsurance assessment. This team is also investment and management of loan to smallholder farmers across Nigeria under the Central Bank of Nigeria's Anchor Borrowers Program. Mr. Opeoluwa's present mandate is to move the uptake of insurance by smallholder farmers in Nigeria from its present state of less than 3,000 farmers to 3.8 million farmers by 2026. Welcome, Mr. Opeoluwa. And finally, we have Mr. Siddhartha Samar. Mr. Siddhartha Samar is the Vice President, Digital Head for Africa and Middle East at Olam Nigeria, rather at Olam International. Prior to this role, he has been a career marketer and has worked for leading brands like Airtel, Hewlett-Packard in India, and Olam's packaged food businesses in Nigeria. He has championed digital marketing initiatives in Nigeria, including a series of advertising campaigns with Mark Angel Comedy, which generated more than 50 million views on YouTube and Facebook. He has spent close to 7 years in Africa, traveled extensively, and has a deep understanding of West African consumers. In his current role, he interacts with farmers, traders, consumers, startups across different parts of Africa, and uses that understanding to develop digital products that are tailor-made for Africans and for Africa. He believes Africa will be the center of gravity of the world market, and digital media will be the key driver to transform and bring that change. Hence, he is quite passionate about driving digital solutions in Africa. Welcome, Ms. Victoria, Mr. Opeoluwa, and Mr. Siddhartha. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Onini.
Thank you.
So to our participants, as you listen to our panelists and follow the discussion today, I hope you're inspired by the potentialities of agriculture in Nigeria and Africa at large. I also hope that we're able to identify how we can contribute to and benefit from its development. Before we get into the discussion, I would like to give some tips to our participants. Kindly utilize the questionnaire feature that is on your screen to submit questions during the session. We would have a Q&A session after the discussion with the panelists. Also, the summit hashtag is Agriconnect Summits. You can use the hashtag to keep up with our conversations online. Okay, so for the questions, I will be starting with you, Mr. Siddhartha.
Yep.
According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the world population will reach about 9.1 billion by 2050. And to feed that number of people, global food production will need to grow by 70%. Now for Africa, which is projected to be home to about 2 billion people by then, farm productivity must accelerate at a rate that's faster than the global average for us to avoid continued mass hunger. Now, crop yields per hectare have proven to be lower in Africa than any other region in the world, though we possess 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land. The average cereal yield in Nigeria is estimated to be about 1.5 metric tons per hectare, compared to Brazil, Israel, Mexico with 5.2, 3.5, and 3.8 metric tons per hectare respectively. What would you say influences this? And what are your thoughts on how we can begin to address this?
Good afternoon, Ekasa. Hope my Yoruba was correct. I think, first of all, hope everybody was joined in safe and healthy. Yield in agriculture is something similar to football in sports. If you ask anybody, everybody will have a point of view, and if you ask a million people, probably you will get a billion views. But I think I would look at it from two aspects. The first aspect is when you look at a overall yield, before doing comparison with global benchmarks or countries which are globally the best, what we need to also look at is the yield variances that is there within the countries itself, between different regions. And that is a very low hanging fruit which can be attacked first. Just to give you an example, for cotton in Cote d'Ivoire, we had done one such analysis. And between the cotton growing regions, in Cote d'Ivoire, there was a variance in yield to the tune of about 40%. And when we used a little bit of analytics and looked at all the factors that could impact yield, we looked at almost 30 factors and then realized that about 4 of them are significant in terms of the way they impact yield. The plant density, the planting time, and the utilization of urea and NPK. So and all these are factors which can be solved if we have the proper advice and proper implementations in place at the right time. So I think first thing what we need to attack is the yield variances within the country. And if you look at overall, at a high level, the things that impact yield, first of all, is access to credit at the right rates. So a lot of times farmer knows that what he wants to do, that a fertilizer needs to be applied, but if you don't have the money, there is nothing you can do about it. So one is providing that access to credit, and that too at a rate which a farmer would be able to repay back. Seeds is again a critical factor. Availability of seeds, the right quality of seeds at a price at which a farmer can buy is important. Irrigation in large parts of Africa, we depend on rainfall for irrigation. There are some studies which has happened which shows on an average a farmer spend almost 17 hours per week to move water from one source to other from irrigation perspective. So how we build up that infrastructure for irrigation is also equally critical. Soil testing is an area where a lot of things can be done. Currently, as per different studies in Nigeria as well as Africa overall, only about 5% of farmers have some sort of access to soil information which they have. So this, if made affordable, can be, very useful. Mechanization is also an important factor, and we have to look at solutions for mechanization which is made in Africa, which is useful from a smallholder farmer perspective, and those solutions should be implemented. Lack of good agronomy practices also contributes to low yield. I think a lot of these things can be solved if we have a good agri extension network in place, we train them, we improve their efficiencies, we provide digital tools to them by which they can disseminate that information. So that is the first part. Coming back to smart farming and other things which can improve yield, which is the next part, from a yield perspective is I'm very keen and I'm very passionate about satellite imagery, because I think the beauty about satellite imagery is you get to see things on a at a overall country level, and you can still boil it down to each farmer or farm level. So, but satellite imagery and use of that is expensive. Depending on use cases, it can vary from 25-30,000 USD to 100,000 USD. So if other stakeholders, government or ecosystem players get into it and use that information to derive insights which can then be shared with farmers, it can be extremely useful, because the extra yield that comes results in extra income for the farmer, and also impact in a positive way to the companies who invest in it. I also think soil testing can be an interesting area for innovation. If we have devices which are portable, which uses solar power, which provides, once you put an input, you get the output within minutes, and the cost has to be absolutely cost. So I think some of these, there is a lot of innovation which needs to happen on this front, but it can again be a useful and powerful and a simple thing for a farmer to use and impact yield. But as we go about impacting yield, what we should not forget is once we have a higher yield, we also need to build in the infrastructure of storage to keep that yield, and also connect the farmers to market, so that that yield is eventually consumed in some market and the farmer is able to realize extra income out of it. So that is what would be my perspective on the whole topic of driving yield within Africa.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Siddhartha. And one of the interesting things you mentioned, which has to do with technology, actually leads me to my next question, which is then directed to Ms. Victoria. So, Africa's agriculture is primarily driven by smallholder farmers who produce more than 80% of the food that's cultivated in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, as opposed to other developing countries, there is low access and adoption of technology innovations, right, and modern techniques by Nigeria's smallholder farmers. Now, Ms. Victoria, what are your thoughts on why this is the case? And how can we solve this to drive better adoption?
Thank you very much, Nini. So from my interactions with smallholder farmers, mostly during this pandemic, as we tell the African farmers' stories, I realized that there's a huge disconnect between what researchers want to see and what the farmers can actually do. So there's this resistance that occurs between new technology and existing technology. The farmers believe that they have what it takes for them to grow their farm. So most times in the context of the smallholder farmers, researchers have not been able to differentiate, and policymakers have not been able to differentiate between the farmer and the farm hand. So we have who we call the farmer. And the pictures that we see online are mostly those of the farm hands, that's the labor on farm, as you have the factory workers and the factory owner. So as a farmer, you have the knowledge. As a technology company, the knowledge that have been, or the researcher have told you that the knowledge the farmers have, because they've interacted with the farm hands who they see in pictures with hoes and cutlasses, is their technology that these farmers need. It is high time that technology companies understand and policymakers understand that farm hands are different from the farmers. That's one. Two, also understand that there is an existing local technology, and these farmers are really price sensitive. You need to build on the existing local technology that is cheaper for them, and you can make it scalable. For example, you have the potato farmer in Jos, right? You see him you see the farm managers or farm hands that are working with him, and you conclude that he does not know what he's doing because the farm hands is not implementing accordingly. Now, where does the youth come into play in this whole conversation? The youth needs to be the extension officer. They need to see that there is growth, hierarchy growth in farming, in agriculture. They also need to understand that this is where the money resides, and this is how you can see the money. Clearly defining this role, saying use as an undergraduate, you can use the drone and you can be a specialist on deploying drones in farms in Nigeria or in Africa, shows a clear-cut career path. It doesn't show the dirty, raggedy farm hand that we are used to seeing in pictures. And this is part of what stimulated that narrative, the African farmer story. Then you also have a need for extension services. This is where the young, the youths of today need to play. Private extension services. Most of there's a disconnect between what the farmer knows and what the farm hands they know. And the youths of today will be very important players in bridging that gap. There's so many opportunities that needs to be highlighted. And once we're able to identify each of these points and career paths properly, we will then be farming smartly. Now, smart farming is not just using high techs. It is using technology that is efficient in terms of productivity and in terms of pricing. Let me give you an example. You buy a drone in Nigeria. You buy a drone for 300, 400,000 naira. In a long run, you need almost 3 million to get the approval to fly the drone within your locality. You can see that there's a disconnect between the policy makers and the farmers. We need advocates that can bridge that gap to say, your policy is hurting agriculture in this regards. So technology adoption becomes very low. You have someone that can preserve their Irish potato with zero energy and with zero, almost zero cost, because they can produce locally what they use to preserve the Irish potato for up to 6 months. These are the kind of technologies we need to bring to the fore so that we can replicate it in a commercial level, make it scalable, and yet it will still be affordable for every farmer. The farmers are cost sensitive because we have a whole lot of post-harvest loss happening. And they just want to go when they have money, they produce at a high level. And when there's no money, there's no production. So if we're able to bridge the gap, and this is where youth participation is really and highly required to bridge that gap, because they are tech savvy, they are online, and their information is real time. So they're able to use the online real-time system to include both the farm hands and the farm owners to reduce a whole lot of loss, a whole lot of wastage, and a whole lot of capital investment, and significantly. So from my perspective, these are the ways that we can make farming smart, We can make farming attractive, and we can make farming inclusive for my generation and the generation after. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Victoria, for that very insightful response. Wow. And we're just getting started. Okay. So thank you. And building on the points that you've made, I'm going to turn now to Mr. Okweoluwa Ogundipe. Ms. Victoria had mentioned things around technology and policies, and also being able to bridge that gap, right, between technology, either sophisticated or simple, okay, making that available, and the policies that are also being enacted. So, Mr. Okweoluwa, the agricultural sector is a potential gold mine, right, from a lot of the discussions we've had already for our economy. With a guaranteed market, there's also that opportunity for investors, local and foreign. And as well, it's seen as an exponential job engine, okay? Especially with the discussion around youth, and there are already these clear opportunities for how youth can get involved. Now, what are your thoughts on how the government, and the government's disposition towards the relevance and need for technology in agriculture? What are your thoughts on that? At the same time, would you also share what policies and interventions you think should be enacted to encourage smart farming in Nigeria?
Thank you for this opportunity, Nini. So what is the government's disposition? I can tell you clearly that over the years, even starting from 1960 up to date, the government's disposition has been friendly towards agriculture. The government's disposition has always been to get what is the most current in terms of production to our agriculture. But we may misunderstand it in many ways, that government's disposition, because when we talk about technology, we are supposed to be looking at what we call appropriate technology. Both Sid and Victoria have touched on it a bit, but appropriate technology is what we should be looking at. That way, when we talk about technology, and we seem to focus more on the technology of the Western world. So the people in Israel sit down, look at their problems, and develop a technology for their problems. And we see those technology and we just bring it in. So the more we think of technology as what we see already produced, then we are missing the point. So we need to look at what we call appropriate technology. Appropriate technology comes in 5 major areas when we talk about agriculture in Nigeria. The first will be in inputs. What are the inputs that go into agriculture itself? We are talking here in terms of seeds, we're talking in terms of fertilizer, we're talking in terms of crop production, protection products. So what is the technology that we need for these things in our own local area? We have seed companies. What are they doing about those things? The government has supported seed companies, fertilizer companies. You have fertilizer companies that do organic fertilizer. People can go into that. There are technologies that modernize that. The biggest problem we have is actually information. People do not have access to information. We need, the second area we are talking about, education. So talking about information, people don't know about good agricultural practice. When Sid was talking about extension agents, that's where extension agents come into play. But is it viable actually to have extension agents as a private entity? Who pays for those extension agents? That's why you see the government has always been the one playing in that field, because it's not actually, we've not found the model where we can make this private, where people come into extension agents. Now we have some companies already springing up by youths that want to offer extension services to farmers via their mobile phones. When you use the USSD code, that, oh, we are offering extension services to farmers. So this is technology in itself, where you get extension services instead of sending people to the field, which is not economical for private organizations. We are having young people begin to send those information to the field using USSD codes, where text messages tell the farmers when it is time to plant, the kind of seeds they need to use. So that is appropriate technology. We talk about mechanization. Do we want to bring in brick tractors into the field? So this is where we talk about clustering of farmers. Many of our smallholder farmers, their farms average 0.4 hectares. You can't bring a tractor as a smallholder farmer. So when you begin to look at technology in those terms, the way other people do it, then it doesn't work for us, because our smallholder farmers have small land holdings. So we have to look for appropriate technology. Luckily for us in Nigeria, we are beginning to have companies that have make power tillers. We are beginning to have companies that make tricycles that have power implements behind them. Those are the kind of technology we are talking about. And when you say is government supporting them, yes, government is supporting them, because you have organizations like the BOI, where Victoria works for, that support companies like that build these kinds of machines that smallholder farmers can use. The other way where people like Nestle are working in is seeing that, okay, these farmers need to be clustered together. Because when you bring farmers together, then you can enjoy what we call economics of scale. Now, when you bring farmers together in cooperatives, we are not talking about cooperatives that one person is in this particular local government, another person is in another local government. We are talking about geo-cooperatives where you have farmers in the same geolocation coming together. When you can gather this mass together, then you can bring in technology that you can use for mass farming. That way, it's also technology, bringing farmers together. Number 4, I'll talk about storage. There are opportunities in storage. So when the farmers produce, they need to store for some items. And the final one, which is the critical one, which the Honorable Commissioner mentioned, is access to market. If the farmers produce and they don't have direct access to market, then they remain poor. So you produce maize, for instance, and you sell to the middleman at, for instance, 5 naira per cob of maize. That middleman is going to sell to the Olams of this world at 20 naira per cob of maize. This middleman has put in no energy into this thing. All he has done is just to go and gather. Maybe he has gotten some funds from the bank so he can pay the farmers directly. In some cases, they don't even pay the farmers immediately. After they collect money from those they sell it to, they come and pay the farmers. So they make about 300% return on investment, while the farmer makes about 15% return on investment. So access to market is critical. So that is technology also. What kind of technology can we create for these farmers to be able to have direct access to markets? So when we talk about technology, we're not just talking about the big equipment, but we are looking at our own climb, where we are, from the whole value chain, from pre-upstream up to downstream. What are the challenges that we have, and what appropriate technologies can we put in to make things easier for those that are involved in the value chain, from seed up to the markets? So that's where technology comes in. What is the government doing? There are many interventions. The problem actually is communication. So where we can begin to have forums like this, where we can bring people in and dedicate it to, what are the intervention funds available, and how do we access these intervention funds? Fortunately, all these things are online. If you go to the website of the Ministry of Agric, you will see the different programs there and how you can benefit from those programs. If you go to the CBN website, you will see all the interventions that the CBN is promoting and how you can benefit from it. But guess what? People do not read. People that read actually access these intervention funds, and they make use of these intervention funds. That's what happens. So the difference the actual difference is between those that read and those that do not read. If you are interested and you read those websites, it's very easy. Those funds are there, those programs are there. All you need to do is read it and see, these are the steps I need to take, and you start. And they are all there already. So it's not a matter of whether the government is doing something or the government has put policies in place. Maybe the way we can help government is to publicize these things, or get our people to read more about what the government is doing, or the government needs to actually publicize more on the things, on the programs available for farmers across the value chain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Opeolua, for that very insightful response. Thank you. Before I jump into the next question, to our participants who are just joining us, we're discussing smart farming, a solution to prevailing hunger in Africa. And we have with us 3 subject matter experts, Miss Victoria Madedo from BOITC, Mr. Opeolua from NICEL, and Mr. Siddhartha from Olam International. You can use the hashtag Agriconnect Summit to keep up with our conversations online. Okay, so to you again, Miss Victoria. In your last response, you had touched a bit on youth involvement. So this next question connects to that. Now, generally, there's a low involvement of youth, right, in agriculture, largely due to the perception of farming as being antiquated or unprofitable, okay? And the image of agriculture has been more about subsistence and not commercial. Now, how do you think that adopting smart farming practices will change this narrative among our youths, especially in terms of job creation and opportunities?
Thank you so much, Mini. For my generation and the generation after, what we want to see is things that do not involve us hard labor. We do not like hard labor, but we like the money. And tech is where the future is for agriculture. Now, like the connect to work, the Agriconnect to work that Cellulant is massively promoting, it is a way to involve the youth using technology, training them mostly on how to develop local technology that is affordable and that is cheap. Once the youth of today see that they can use drones to apply their fertilizers without moving from the comfort of their home, they can aggregate themselves together as a cluster to buy 100 acres of land or hectares of land so that it is cost efficient. So let's say a group of 10 farmers have access to 100 hectares of land. They come together as a cooperative to buy the drone, to apply the fertilizer or the pesticides, as the case might be. They meet Tractor. Tractor is a local manufacturer of tricycles, tricycle-powered plowers, planters, and all of that, which is also very cheap. To say, let us buy that to do our planting. When they start hearing things like that, and you can also show them that this is how to access market first, because most of them are discouraged, because when you finish the hard labor, you get all these people to work for you on farm, and you've harvested, you don't have where to sell it. But once your platform, for example, is able to tell them, this is how to source your market, this is how to get your market before you start farming, this is how to ensure you have operational integrity in what you are doing, so that you can see from end to end the process, understand the process, then there's no cobweb, for a lack of a better word to use, cobweb in the entire agricultural process. You also let them understand that it is more about value addition. We have a whole lot of people that are farming. This pandemic showed a whole lot of weakness in the supply chain. A lot of people are farming. We have mangoes that are going to rot. We have oranges that are rotting at farm gate and marketplaces. You can say, on board these farmers, add value to what they are doing currently. We can have our Nigerian dry mangoes. What stops us from having things like that? Why can't we have youths that can play in that sector? Find the local technology that works in terms of value addition. Once they see that they can use technology, they can use machines adequately, and they can assess the market without too much drama. You know, we have so much cabal existing at the moment in different local markets, and they understand that they can penetrate into the market without this cabal holding them to ransom. They will be able to, with so much enthusiasm, go into agriculture. It is very simple to attract youths. They, you know, we are very image driven. We want to see, you know, how it looks and how it feels. It's very important in this generation. The look and the feel is what controls the mind of youths in my generation and the younger generation. So once they're able to see that, oh, I can develop an app that will become the new extension service thingy and interact with farmers from home, you know, they feel fly with themselves, like they are the new Naira Marley of agriculture, that kind of image, you know. And if you don't feed them with the right information that makes them feel that they are adding value, then they cannot be attracted to the sector. Technology, like I said, value addition, innovation, it is where we need to push the interest of the youths of today, my generation. That is what we want to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Victoria. Mr. Siddhartha, would you like to chip in on this as well?
Yeah, sure, Nini. I think Victoria touched upon it very nicely. But I think from her mango example, I remember something. I think it was in 2015, and we are driving down from Nasarawa. You know, we are driving in Nasarawa state, and there was a mango seller who was selling mangoes. And then, so we asked him what's the price of the mango. He said, I think 200 naira. It was a basket of mangoes, which might have about 5 kg or more than that. And he was asking for a price of 200 naira. And we took that mango. But the same mango, when you go to, when we came to Lagos and went to some of the markets from where we buy vegetables, was selling at around 1200 to 1500 naira. So I think what the point which I want to make here is, look, if a young guy or a young Nigerian sees the money in this, you know, where he knows that, you know, with proper access to market, I can make almost 1000 naira, you know, margin in just 5 kg of mangoes. That sort of thing also attracts youth. I think there was a research also done on this, and you know, what could attract youth to agriculture. And one very simple point came on this. It was all about connectivity. A young guy, he might want to spend his day on the field, but once he comes back in the evening, I still want to stay connected. You know, I still want to post my pictures on Instagram, Facebook. You know, so connectivity in rural areas is also a critical aspect which can bring in youth to farming. Third is the whole startup and ecosystem. You know, how do you develop that ecosystem around it? Because youth, though directly don't get attracted to agriculture, but they get attracted to agriculture startups. And you know, companies like Celluland, Farm Proudy, you know, and any of those companies which are in the agriculture sector, how do you share positive stories? How do you use influencers to whom you know, youth is attracted to? It could be a footballer, it could be a musician, it could be it could be someone else who it could be entrepreneur as well. So how do we get those people to share positive stories about agriculture that can then attract youth to agriculture? I also believe in some ways the education system also needs to bring in certain things about agriculture within the education system. You can't change the education system completely in any country, but bringing in certain aspects of agriculture into the system at a secondary or at the later stage of in the education part can also be very helpful in bringing in youth to agriculture.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And still on this question, Mr. Opeoluwa. So I know NICEL has discussed a couple of projects and initiatives with primary focus on driving youth farming and youth in agriculture. So from this perspective, would you mind sharing your thoughts on the adoption of youth or smart farming and how this can help change the narrative of working in agriculture among youths?
Oh, thank you. So smart farming and youth in agriculture. I was glad when the Honorable Commissioner was speaking about Lagos being a cosmopolitan society, and they were doing a lot of programs on getting used to use greenhouses to produce. And I'm sure she will be interested, to have a sit down with us on how we can get youths in cosmopolitan areas to produce vegetables for the supermarkets and other stores in city centers. So there's a lot going on there, and you have youths majorly interested in that. But to look at why will youths want to go into agriculture, you may want to go down history lane. I remember when I was much, much younger, who were the role models? Role models then were athletes. So you have the Mary Onyalis of this world. You have the Adenekons of this world that were running. They were athletes, people running, because that was what was cool then. That was what people wanted to do. That was what was recognized. Then you had footballers. Those guys necessarily did not have money, but they had fame. They had honors from the government. Governments congratulated them, gave them awards. So people wanted to be that. Then you go to the stadium then in Surulere, and you see a lot of young people, they want to be athletes. They want to run. They want to do high jump. They want to do all those things, especially when Mary Onyali won the gold medal, the first gold medal. When Rashidi Yekini scored the first goal. So a lot of youth wanted to go into that. Then we moved away from that phase to the phase where people were now interested in money. Those days, those guys were not rich. Mary Ali was not rich. Yekini was not, they were not rich. But now, the era we are in today is the money era. People are interested in money and fame. That is what drives the youth. Even the influencing thing, everything, when you look at the back of everything, it's all about how much money is in it. It's the amount of money you have is what makes you cool. So even if you have a farm and you post pictures of your farm and there's no money at the end of the day, people don't think you are cool. They may think you are cool at the beginning because you are posting pictures of your nice farm, but if there's no money to back it, nobody is ready to mingle with you. So how do we get youth interested in agriculture? One, you have to show them the money. They have to see that there's money in agriculture. Now, this is legit money. This is not the money of the people that are doing fraud or trying to get people, rob people or things like that. No, this is legit money. Agriculture, if done well, is the only business where you can actually have 100% return on investment. I'm a Christian, and in the Bible, you see that when you sow, it says you reap 100-fold. The only business that is legit where you can do that is agriculture. Using maize as an example, you put a seed of maize in the ground. If you have you don't have the hybrid seed, you will get at least one cob one cup from that seed, that cup alone has more than 100 seeds in it. So take that into monetary terms. You have a lot of money in agriculture, as long as it is done well, and as long as, when I mean done well, you grow it well and you sell to the market. I have a farm and different agricultural investments, which I do with a lot of my friends. So some of the times I put the pictures or the videos of the things we are doing on my WhatsApp status. And people call me and they are so interested. What's going on? I like the way the farm looks. I like it. So what's in it? They like the farm. But when I tell them, you can make 30% return on investment on this, I have friends that have withdrawn their money from fixed deposit. If you put money in the bank today, you cannot get more than 4% from your money in a year. That is, you put ₦1 million in the bank for a whole year, you get 40,000 naira. That's what you will get as interest on that money. So I call my friend, and my friend sees my WhatsApp, and they say, "Oh, how much do you make from this thing?" I said, "I can make you 30% return on investment in 6 months." They said, "No, you are joking." I said, "Yes." They say, "Oh, because you are my friend, okay, let me give you 1 million or 2 million. Let's put in your maize farm." And after 6 months, I give them 30% return on investment. The next one, they are closing their bank accounts and moving money into agriculture. Those are my friends that have money. I have friends that are not so rich. And one of them calls me and says, "Oh, okay, I like this, your farm. What's going on there?" I said, "Well, you can do the same thing." He said, he's hustling in Lagos. I said, "With this one, if you have the money you are using to hustle, if you have 1 hectare of maize, I give him the calculation. This is what you can do. So you can make maybe 15 or 20% every 6 months. But even if you have 1 or 2 of your friends, you guys make it bigger, then you enjoy economies of scale. You can actually make 50% return on investment. And guess what? The next time the guy is going to call me, this was before the lockdown, he says he's in Ibadan. I found land, though. Me and my friends, we are here in Ibadan. We have found land. Is this person's grandfather's village. We have found land. We have gotten 10 hectares. Please guide us on how to go about these things." And they're in Ibadan right now, farming, because they saw the money in agriculture. Of course, we cannot rule out smart agriculture because that allows you to scale up what you can do. So without smart agriculture, without the tractors, your 1 million naira may earn you maybe 100,000 naira. But when you bring in smart agriculture, that your 1 million naira will earn you 300,000 naira in 3 months, in 6 months. That is what the youth want to know, because they already have the devices for fame, which is the Twitters, which is the Facebook and all these other Instagram. So they have fame. If you want the fame, you can, as long as you post pictures, you get that fame. But that money is what they are looking for. And when you give them a legit way of making money, then you see. So we also need to show role models, your other young people that are into agriculture and how they are making it in agriculture. Once there's a friend of mine who is from Zimbabwe, and we're having a conversation. When he came to my office, he works, is the head of agri for FCMB, Kudza. And I was seeing him off. He was going back to Lagos. And he said, "Do you know, Okwe, in Zimbabwe, that if you have SUV in Zimbabwe, 1 out of 3 chance you're a farmer." So the youths growing up there know that majority of the people that are driving SUVs, what they do is farming. Those are role models. And they also want this kind of lifestyle. I want to be in an SUV, or I want to be able to afford clothes. I want to be able to go on holidays. And the people I see doing this are people that are going into farming. So we need to promote also people that are succeeding in agriculture. That way, the youth will come more into agriculture, apart from the smart farming and things like that. So it goes beyond the smart farming. The smart farming is an enabler when you actually get into it. But to draw the youth into agriculture, you need to show them the money.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Opeoluwa. I think from all these discussions, it's become very clear that the opportunities that exist in agriculture, the potential cannot be overemphasized. The opportunities for wealth creation, and impacts that can be made. What we then need to work on is the communication. How do we make this more visible to the youth and to people so that we can get involved, right? And to make it clear that there are wealth creation opportunities here. What's the trajectory, or what does it look like? Which ties to Miss Victoria's point about youth wanting to see that trajectory of, okay, this is what I can be and this is where I can move to. So thank you. So our final questions before we take questions from the audience is to Mr. Siddhartha. So I read an article recently, right, that said scientists, politicians, and the Pope are not the only ones calling for action on climate change these days. So while I thought this was funny, the reality of it is that farmers, both small and large, are having to deal with changes in weather patterns, rainfall, temperature, thereby making it even harder to predict and manage their production process and outcomes. Now, Mr. Siddhartha, we know Olam is largely involved in backward integration, either directly or indirectly through partners. Now, what smart farming techniques has Olam adopted or seeks to adopt? And what are you encouraging other farmers and players in this space to adopt?
I think other than Donald Trump, everybody believes there is climate change.
True.
I think Olam's journey in in terms of digital agriculture started about in a meaningful way started about 3 years back. And one of the first things which we did was to basically first create a farmer database. So it has things like where the farmer lives, what is his life, what is his plot size, what's the GPS coordinates, what are the social infrastructure points which are available close to a farming community. And we have mapped almost 500,000 farmers onto that database. And especially in large parts of Africa where primary level farmer database availability is a big challenge, we believe the asset that we have created is extremely useful. And as we move along, as we open up things for other ecosystem players, that can be a good asset to use as far as driving digital agriculture is concerned. And all our solutions, digital solutions that we use, as far as their farmer database is concerned, we all use big database, and on the back of which different solutions run. Secondly, when we did research with farmers in various developing countries, there were two themes which emerged. One was access to market, second is access to finance. And the theme was recurring across multiple geographies, across continents, with smallholder farmers. So one of the other solutions that we launched, initially in Indonesia and then expanded it to 10 countries is called as Olam Direct. So what we do in this is basically it's an app-based buying model directly from farmers. Everyday basis, the farmer receives a price at the beginning of the day at which Olam wants to buy. For non-smartphone customers, the price goes through SMS. For smartphone customers, it goes through the app. The farmer gives his consent on what kind of quantities he has, and then we have a logistics evacuation model built into the app, by which bike collectors and in certain geographies, small trucks, small pickup vehicles are arranged to pick up that stock from the farmers directly. And the big advantage for farmers is basically when we buy directly from them, they are able to get about 8 to 10% higher prices as compared to what they would otherwise get. So that is one. And now we have a presence of Olam Direct in almost 10 countries, and we are expanding it gradually. It's a very intensive solution, so it takes a bit of time to scale. At least in each of the geographies, it takes about 1.5 years, 2 years to scale up the solution, but very useful. Second is we also work with a lot of agents, a lot of aggregators and cooperatives, and we wanted to digitize that part of the value chain as well. And it's a good way to work, especially with smallholder farmers, because these guys, they have been dealing with the farmers since ages, and they have a certain level of trust. Plus, when you're dealing with a smaller number of aggregators or agents, you can also train them, you can provide them with infrastructure in case they don't have smartphones or connectivity. So all that can be done with a smaller base, and then you use that human network to disseminate information to farmers. So we have created something which is called as a digital supplier engagement solution, which has key features like traceability, right till the farm level, ability for the aggregator to raise funds whenever they require it. Then they can also raise sales intents, suggesting what kind of quantities they have. We can also do instant surveys with them if we want to do it. So it's a very holistic solution, and as with any digital solution, it will also evolve over time. But basically for the channel where we deal with middlemen, also we are trying to digitize it. Then of course, we have created farmer services platform in a few countries where different services which a farmer wants, is delivered to them digitally. Africa has almost 65% of the population is going to be under 35, so that it has a huge demographic dividend. And like the theme of this meeting itself, obviously a lot of youth are going to come to agriculture, because of the sheer mix of population that we have. And basically we have to make sure that some of the existing behaviors which youth have, whenever you are developing solutions, you take some of that existing behavior and ride on it. So just to give simple example, again, coming back to that photo example where youth like to take a lot of pictures, they want to upload pictures on Instagram, on Facebook. We have used that insight and created a solution in one of our products which uses image analytics. So what it does is you take a crop and you take the picture of that crop and you post it on on the image analytics platform. Then we have an algorithm at the back end of it. It analyzes all pictures which are of similar type and would suggest you what kind of a disease the crop might have, what are the kind of precautions that you can take, and basically helps in in crop care. So I think these are some some of the use cases which we have done. We have also used satellite monitoring extensively in certain geographies, but it's still we are still in a stage where things are evolving. A lot of our solutions have scaled up now, but I think the next stage would be to get in different ecosystem players and see how we can work together with them, because it's not a one-man show. We have to work within the environment to really drive change to smallholder farmers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Siddhartha. Okay, so we have quite a number of questions that have come from the participants. However, because of time, let's see how many we'll be able to respond to. So we have one here, and with the way it's been structured or sent, I think I will direct this to Ms. Victoria and Mr. Opeolua. Says that we've been talking about the benefits of mechanized farming and bringing in technology, but the price is not cheap. Is there anything BOI or NICEL is doing in this regard? Are there any financial grants or palliatives to farmers to purchase smart farming tools? Ms. Victoria?
Okay, so yes, like I said earlier, we understand the cost of technology. Western technology. You know, we need to differentiate this thing. We have local technology that we can use to grow ourselves, that are affordable, are cheap, and we need to replicate. Then we have the Western technology that it is awesome, amazing, but we don't need to adopt it. We just need to adapt the technology to what we are currently doing. Having said that, in terms of accessing funding, when it comes to technology, BOI is very, very, very open to funding such tech-driven agricultural ventures. Very, very, very excited about it, because I mean, if we do not start using technology, mostly local technology, we don't start including our local technology in our agricultural processes, then we will not be able to grow and scale up and become that competitive agric nation that we are projecting ourselves to be. If you have such ventures or innovations, please, I would always say, as a startup, grants are the best for you to do. But however, they are never enough for you to actually scale. If you have the money to prove your concept, then please do, then come to BOI. BOI will help you to scale. If you also, if you say where you're starting from is such a huge capital and you do not have a way to collateralize the fund, what I can also advise you is that we have a lot of collateral partners, like the NICEL, we have Nigerian Collateral Registry, we have InfraCredit. They are your go-to people for guarantee. So some people do not know how to raise this funds. If you come to BI Investment and Trust, I will walk you through the process. If you are starting up, please have a proof of concept so that we don't do the back and forth ballet dance. Thank you. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Okber, did you want to?
Yes, so Victoria has spoken very well. She said almost everything that needs to be said. But I'd like to add, to be specific, there's a program, like I said initially, the problem is people don't actually read. The information is out there. So I mentioned two programs. There's what we call the AGSMEIS, AGSMEIS. That's the Agricultural and Small Scale and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. This scheme is a scheme by the Central Bank of Nigeria, where businesses, all kinds of business, can get a loan at single digits to a maximum of 10 million naira. So for somebody that is into an agri enterprise, you can get that loan for 10 million, whereby the ideal situation is that the bank expects that about 70% of it will be for capital expenditure, where, you know, while the 30% will be for operational activities. So that loan exists, and with that kind of loan, you can actually acquire technology, which is the local technology, which may be appropriate for the scale of business you are doing. But if you are already doing small scale, you need to start from somewhere, obviously. So if you're already doing small scale and you want to expand and you need more than that 10 million, we can group you into cooperatives where people of like minds, someone says that if you want to do something good, then you can do it alone. But if you want to do something really great, exceedingly great, you need people of like mind around you. So you can form yourself into geo-cooperative, which is one of the things that NICEL is promoting right now, because we see that the way forward is to have people clustered into cooperatives that have the same goal. That way you can access bigger funds, and you can actually get this Western technology that were designed for large-scale farming. Most of the appropriate technology we talk about are for small-scale farming. So with those ones, you can immediately, as long as you have the idea of what you want to do, you have the land, if it's something that is into farming, then you can apply for the AXMIS loan and you'll get that loan. It takes less than 6 months to get that loan because you need a business plan. You will need to attend a training, first of all, with any of the certified training institutes. When you attend that training, then you do a business plan, and with that, you apply. You will have heard of the NISA Microfinance Bank. That microfinance bank handles all loans for all kind of enterprises. But at NISA, we focus more on agriculture, any aspect of the value chain, be it in the input section, be it even the farming itself, or processing or the market. So if you're into small scale, then you can access the 10 million fund or less, depending on what you want to do. But if you want to do large scale, then you need to come into our cooperative where you and other people who have the same idea can form a cluster for processing or any other thing you want to do. So the funds are available. You just need to apply. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. Onini, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. And since I still have you, let me just throw in this last question before we close the session for today. There's a question that came in saying that from Kebbi State, where I reside, a lot of us farmers, one thing I've realized is a major problem is lack of awareness to what is accessible in terms of grants and techniques and tools and things like that. So is there any training that the federal government has prepared for those kind of farmers?
So the Ministry of Agriculture, through the different extension services they have, consistently provides training for farmers. But what we have also done at NERSAL under the Anchor Bora program is for every applicant. So we group farmers together. If you are interested in being grouped as a farmer or you're interested in any of the programs in agriculture, all you need to do is to visit the website, the NERSAL website, or any of our offices in any of the CBN buildings in the state, in all the 36 states of the country. Just go to any of the CBN buildings and ask for the NERSAL office. There you can get information on how you can be clustered as a farmer, or if you want to go it alone, we are really small scale and you want to do it alone. But we prefer this geo-clustering. That's what is big now. That's what we are promoting, geo-clustering of farmers. What we do is that before you are given a loan, you are trained. You are trained on what we call good agricultural practice, because that training can be the difference between what makes you a smallholder farmer and a big time farmer, because you are getting 1.6 tons of maize because you are not using the best practices. But with that training, that your 1.6 metric tons can come up to 4, up to 6 metric tons just by applying the right things at the right time. So we are very big on training. There is no single facility that we have facilitated, that we have given out without adequate training. It doesn't happen. Even as we speak, even during the pandemic right now, we are still training people both online and physically. It's just that you now do the trainings outside. Normally it should be in a hall where you have many people, but because of the pandemic, like we discussed before, so you do the trainings outside, you have adequate spacing and things like that. And when you have to do it inside also, you provide spacing. But there is no program that we do without training. That's one. Number two, we have also gone further to do trainings on radio. So we give information on radio. Presently, we are partnering with NIMET. That's the Nigerian Meteorological Service, where we'll be giving out information on the right times to plant, you know. And our radio programs, which are coming on board, will be specific to different local governments, because we have found out that different local governments have certain crops that they are best at. Maize may be grown everywhere in Nigeria, but you will find out that there are some particular geo locations where maize will naturally do better than other areas. So for those areas, we focus the programs on the radio. Local radio is not the national thing, but we go to those areas, the local radio for that area, and talk to them on the best practice for those crops that we think are best suited, that we know scientifically are best suited for their environment. So when it comes to training, we are very big on training. So we are doing it for the farmers we have enrolled, then we are doing it for the generality in different local governments, in different languages, about 7 languages that these radio programs are being aired on.
Okay.
You're on mute, yeah.
So thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Okwe. All right, so this brings us to the end of the panel discussion today. To our keynote speaker, the Honorable Acting Commissioner for Agric, Lagos State, our amazing panelists. From the Cellulant team, we'd like to say thank you very much for sharing from your wealth of knowledge and experiences today. It has indeed been a pleasure. To our participants, we appreciate you for joining us and for your active participation. I believe that some thoughts on how we can contribute and benefit from agriculture have been provoked in our minds today. And I would like to encourage us to take action, no matter how small. And I thank the entire Cellulant team who worked tirelessly behind the scenes and are still working behind the scenes to ensure that this event was a success. The Agriconnect Summit Day 3 holds on Thursday next week, the 13th of August, where policymakers will come together to discuss the role of government policies in creating youth agripreneurs in Nigeria. And we welcome you to join us. You can continue to engage us on our social media pages at Cellulant and at Cellulant Nigeria. Thank you very much once again, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Unini. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Unini. Thank you, Cellulant.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you, Cellulant.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure, honestly.
Same here, Mr. Okwe.
Enjoy the rest of the day.